My name is Barnard. I'm the police chief for Prince William County Police Department, and I want to welcome you to what we call Chat with the Chief, kind of a title that we use just to sort of describe the occasion as just that, having conversations with us and back and forth, some good dialogue. So what I'm going to do is introduce some folks, and then I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes just talking about some current events. But the most important thing of the evening is for you to have an opportunity to ask us questions, some Q&A. So I'm kind of factoring in that, you know, we might be here for 90 minutes or so, but we'll be honest with you, we'll be here as long as we need to be here. So we're delighted and honored that you've taken time out from your evening to be here with us tonight. That really means a lot to us. There's a lot of places you could be. A lot of you have already had long days, I'm certain. But we want to thank you very much for joining us this evening. And for us, it's a great learning opportunity and an opportunity to listen and learn from you about our community. So that's what tonight is all about. Having great dialogue, answering questions, and learning, particularly for us, what we can do to help you. The way we feel about, you know, our role in the community is, you know, I'm your police chief. I work for you. And the folks you're going to meet here tonight from the police department, same thing. They work for you. We're your police department. We work for you. That's as clear as we can say it, and we mean it sincerely. We welcome comments, questions, concerns, whatever the case may be. If you have, you know, tough questions, that's fine. If you have simple questions, we like those too. Those are okay too. We take those. But whatever's on your mind tonight, we'll do our best to be sincere and honest and open and answer your questions to the best of our ability. That's important to us. So before we get started, there's a few people I would like to introduce to you who many of you may know. First of all, your Woodbridge District Supervisor, Supervisor Frank Principe, is here this evening. So thank you very much. Our County Executive, Chris Martino, is here this evening. And there's all kinds of people. You know, once you start naming people, you just don't stop. I see some folks in here I know, and I'm going to just keep going. But I would like to recognize the chairman of the Prince William, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman, chairman of the Prince William County Human Rights Commission, Curtis Porter. Thank you for being here tonight, Mr. Porter.
Happy to be here.
And see now, okay. So if you'd like to be recognized, we can do that. You know, so, but it's an honor for us to be here. So I'd like to introduce some folks that are with us here from the police department this evening. And we don't get to everybody. I'll tell you who else is here in terms of their unit and their responsibilities. So beginning with Deputy Police Chief Steve Thompson. Assistant Police Chief Jared Phelps. And Captain Jim Carr. And then we have a host of folks in the back. We have people from crime prevention who can answer questions, you know, now or after the event. We have people from recruiting. We're always hiring. And if you're not interested, you may have family or friends. We're always hiring. I don't go anywhere unless I talk about recruiting. And so I'm talking about recruiting. We're always hiring. And they're in the back too. And then we have some folks from other units in the police department that we've invited to be with us tonight. And we're delighted that they're all here from some of our CID units, criminal investigation units. And if helpful, we have an officer here who can help us with any Spanish translation that might be helpful or necessary. So just want you to know we have a resource here. So let's get started. And wait a minute. See, this is where I get into I start walking around and say, oh, I just noticed that Mr. Cozy Bailey is here. Mr. Bailey is the current president of the NAACP. Appreciate that very much. And that may happen again as I wander around a little bit, but it's great to have everybody here. So I'm going to just start talking about topics, and they're in no particular order. You know, they're just as things that we might want to share with you tonight. And but then, as I say, 10 to 15 minutes, maybe not even that long, and then I'm going to open it up to questions because we want to hear from you. That is the keystone of tonight, is for us to hear from you and try and answer your questions. So here we go. So Prince William County is a safe community. I live in the county. I'm a resident of the county, so I'm a stakeholder just like you are. And while we have challenges like any community, overall we're a safe community. And we are safe because of working together with the people that live here, work here, worship here, in partnership with you and thousands of others. We're a community probably creeping up on 450,000. I'm going to do a sound check now. Can you hear me in the back? Okay? So I can walk down the aisle a little bit. So we're a community of about 450,000 people, 440, 450. And so we have, a lot of responsibility. Our main mission for any police department, there's all kinds of nice mission statements and vision statements, which are important to have. Very important for a community to have that. But our main mission is to prevent crime and solve crime. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by building trust with those we serve, with those we work for, you all. And we do that by having dialogue. We're here tonight. So that when something does happen, you'll call us if it's a crime. You'll have the trust and engagement with us to know that we're going to take you seriously. We appreciate your information. When you have an issue in your neighborhood, we're going to try and work on it and address it as best we can. We're going to be honest with you about, we may have to meet with you. We've done everything we can. Here's some other avenues we need to look at. But it's about building trust. That's very important to us as we move forward. But the county is a safe place. Having said that, as I say, like any community, we have challenges that deal with crime and issues that surround crime a little bit. 2016 was a tough year for Prince William County. We had 22 homicides. We had 27 traffic fatalities. And this just is very concerning. They're all concerning, but this is something we haven't seen quite at this level. We had 49 people die of overdose in Prince William County last year, opioid related. Now that's a serious issue that's, crossing America. And all of us, of course, want to do what we can to address that. So we have challenges. As we move into 2017, we've tried to do some things in concert with you, our partners, to address each of those areas. And hopefully we'll have some success. Right now, for example, we have, I'm always hesitant to give out numbers, but here you go, you know me, because but we have had 3 homicides in 2017, and we're in the middle of July, 3. So, and I could talk more about that, but I want to move on to other topics. But crime is, that's what we do. We try to solve crime, prevent crime in concert with you. So I would say that this is a safe community, but like any community, we have to sustain it. We have a limited number of resources, and if we had 1,000 police officers, I would still say we have a limited number of resources, and our job is to determine how to best deploy those very valuable resources each day. And the things we try to work on, are issues and topics that put you at the most risk. That's the things we focus on, and I hope that makes some sense, What puts you at the most risk in your community? What puts you at the most risk going to and from work, going to and from a place that you may worship, shopping at our retail outlets? So we focus our resources on issues that put us at the most risk. That doesn't mean we don't check parking violations. We do. We don't check that boat parked on the road when it shouldn't be there. We do. But we try to bring energy and focus to issues that put our community at the most risk. That's kind of how we value our resources and look at our role. But we have to do that with you. We have to do that with you. If we try and do it alone, we're going to fail. We have to work with you and have you have the confidence in us to work with us. And that's about building trust. As we all know, because we live here, work here, Prince William County is a very diverse community. And we think that is one of our strengths. From the river to the mountain. Yeah, we have a little mountain out there in Haymarket. It's not the biggest mountain, but I tell people we have a mountain when I travel around. We must have trust from all folks who live here, regardless of background. We have people of all races, ethnicities, incomes, faith, gender, education, whatever the topic is, wherever it is, we're a very diverse community. So we do our best to conduct outreach and be your police department, regardless of where you live, what you do, how you dress, whatever your background is, we're your police department. Probably the biggest issue in terms of starting to move toward programming is body-worn cameras. So this is July. After Labor Day, we'll begin to train and issue body-worn cameras to our police officers. And I want to say, as I go on and talk, if I start losing a little bit of energy in the back, just raise your hand or wave or something and I'll pick it up. If I start, So body-worn cameras are coming. First day of training is September 5. It'll be a half-day training. They'll come to training. The officers will come to training. They will be issued their camera. They will leave with their camera, of course. And the next time they come to work, they will wear that camera. So we'll go from, let's say, 20 cameras, 30 cameras, and we'll keep having the training, and we'll keep issuing cameras. And we have a schedule that should take us up to close to Thanksgiving. And by that time, all of our patrol officers will have cameras. Our motor unit will have cameras. Our canine unit will have cameras. And our school resource officers will have cameras. So we're starting with those units. It's not the entire police department, but it's most of it. It's probably like 2/3 of it. It's 500 cameras, 75% of it. Because those are the units that have the most contact with the community on a daily basis in terms of police interactions with the folks that live here, work here, come through here, whatever. So September 5 through close to Thanksgiving, body-worn cameras. If you want to learn more about our program, we're glad to take any Q&A on that. But you can also go to our website, and we have a whole page. It's easy to find on the police department website. We have a frequently asked question section. And as we learn, if we get a couple of questions that, hey, let's add that, we add to it. But it's fairly extensive. On there you can see our current policy. Our journal order on the body-worn cameras. As we move forward, we will be looking for feedback. We're going to learn together. This is all new for us, and it's all new for you. And we don't claim to be experts. I've been to a lot of body camera seminars. We have staff that have done the same thing. I've read a lot about body-worn cameras. And you can Google it, of course, and you'll get overwhelmed with the amount of information that's out there. But we want to learn from you. So yes, we have a policy, but as we move forward, we'll be seeking feedback. There are some places we need to amend, revise, tweak the policy. We'll probably, unless there's something that's, extremely, something we really missed, we'll start and then we'll get feedback. And we want honest feedback. It's serious to us that we get feedback from you and our community as a whole. Because this is an important process, important project. So body-worn cameras are coming. September 5, I guess September 6, you'll see the first cameras. I imagine some of those folks in training will be working on the 6th. And then we just add to it. And if you have specific questions during the Q&A, we'll try and address them. But the policy and pages of stuff about our program is on the website. On the website. So I've talked a little bit about crime, body-worn cameras, opioid addiction. We had a program at Forest Park High School a month or so ago. I say we had a small role, to be honest with you. It was put on by the health department and others. But we need to do, what we can to continue to educate folks and provide resources and referrals to folks who are addicted. So we've talked a little bit about that. It's a concern of ours here in Prince William County, and it's something we need to focus on a little bit. We're building a Central District Station, which is over near the McCourt Administration Building on Davis Ford Road. Some of you, if you live in Dale City, Lake Ridge, Davis Ford Corridor, on the Prince William Parkway, somewhere up to Manassas City, you're very likely to be serviced by officers working out of that station. And one way that's interesting, but other way, we're in the field, so I don't think you are going to be real mindful of what station officers come from when they knock on your door if you've called us. But those are the areas that are covered by that Central District Station. We hope to be in that station very late this year. It's under construction. Of course, you can do a drive-by and have officers working out of there. December, January timeframe is what we're focusing on. So I want to thank you, the taxpayers, for your support of that station, for your support of body-worn cameras. It's all funded by you. It's all funded, approved by the board, but all funded by you. And we appreciate your support in this endeavor. So I talked a little bit about, we're hiring. So I want to share with you something that I try and talk about wherever we go, and that's diversity of the police department. So you want perfect kind of world, you want to have a police department that is diverse and kind of reflects the community. So we don't. We just don't. We work hard at it. We have more work to do. So as I said earlier, we take applications from you all tonight and your friends and family. But it's if you came and looked at what we do, you probably think we do okay in terms of the effort and where we go and our strategies. You'd probably give us an okay grade. Not a perfect grade, but an okay grade kind of thing. So we're open to suggestions. But in our minority representation in the police department, we don't hit any of the percentages that are representative of folks living in the county. That's kind of the bar. For example, African American population in Prince William County, residential, is 20%, 21%, 22%, depending on what source you use. We're not there. Hispanic, we're not there. Asian, we're not there. Women, we're not there. But we work hard at it to get there. And so I welcome your suggestions and input on that. It's important to us as a community to do the best we can to be reflective of our community for a lot of reasons. One being that trust factor, helping us keep the community safe. So we are deploying some strategies, looking at some strategies that we haven't done before. We spent a fair amount of coin on an ad. You may have seen it on Comcast Cable, BET Network, other networks that we think can reach communities of diversity. We're going to be trying to do more with our cadet program in our schools. So we're looking at strategies, but we need to do more there. And so I welcome your comments or suggestions and strategies that we can deploy. Very important to us to try and continue to get there. I think that's just a key area for us. So as we look through a police department, about 3 or 4 more minutes, then we're going to go to you. As you look at a police department, you can kind of look at staffing, you can look at facilities, and then policies, technology, you know. So facilities, I think we're doing pretty good. That station's under construction. We have a nice Western station. We have, of course, the station right across the parking lot here. We have multiple satellite stations. The Board of Supervisors will be looking at the possibility of building an animal control facility, a new one, and they'll be getting a presentation on August 1. And then they'll have to make some decisions, but we'll see what happens with that. That'll be a very interesting discussion. So facilities, you know, animal control probably needs to be looked at, but in terms of public safety, police department, expansion of police academy, that would be good, and then animal control. We've grown, the academy opened in 1995, we've grown, and we have a great training program, outstanding training program. But it's a little cramped out there sometimes. So training, facility expansion, animal control, you know, if I could wave the wand, those are the areas I'd be looking at. Staffing, we have, if you're interested, we have 673 authorized strength of police officers. Well, technically as of January 1. They were funded for FY18, but they're funded mid-year, January 1. So, but basically, I'm starting to use that number. We were 660, so we received 13 positions and 2 civilians, 13 sworn, 2 civilians. So we're at 673. We run 2 academies a year. People always ask me and ask others in the police department, how many officers do you have? And the answer, of course, is not enough. And after we chuckle a little bit, the answer is 673. But we always have officers, you know, they're not all working, of course, at one time. And, you know, common sense tells us all that, of course. So we have officers that, you know, are on leave, in court, in training, and then officers working, you know, on the street doing enforcement. So that's why it's so important for us to deploy our officers, because they are such a limited resource and have a big job. So staffing, we're blessed. You know, if the board said, hey, Chief, we want to give you 50 police officers next year, it sounds great, but we would not have the capacity to hire and train them in that kind of you want to do that within like 12 to 18 month time, you know, and our capacity to do that just isn't there. So we're thankful. What I always try to suggest is let's just have a number that is predictable and sustainable so that we have some growth, whether it's 10 or it's 20, but really after 20 or so, you know, if you get up to that kind of number, it's tough to find, recruit, because you also have attrition, people separating, you have to go find and hire those folks, people retiring. But we've been blessed, thanks to your support. This community, yeah, we've had some tough years of staffing, but overall, when you look back, and I believe in, you know, telling the whole story, and say for the last 10 years, you all have done a great job supporting the police department. You know, we've had years of adding 25 officers. We've had years of adding 20 officers. So, you know, you can't just pigeonhole one year. I think you have to look at a broader view. So my book, everybody wants more staff, but I think what the community has done and what the board has done is fair and reasonable. My only, you know, comment overall, like I say, is sustain it so that there's a constant number year after year so we can plan for it and we can prepare for it and that sort of thing. Yes, ma'am?
No, I live in Dumfries and my house has been broken in twice.
Yeah.
And I promote Dumfries and my son has brought the stamps, stickers. So, unfortunately, it's been said that, you know, it's going to take until January to get the academy going. But could you,
Take these?
yeah,
You want me to take the whole thing?
yeah,
Okay.
pass it out because
All right.
I've made a point to go to the Dollar General Store, the library, Toto's, and I'm part of PTO,
Yeah.
Prince William County
Yeah.
Advisory Council, so I'm very active in the community.
Thank you,
And I
thank you.
would like for, you know, I appreciate the officers that have come by.
You want to see the police in your community?
Right, and
Right.
it's not gonna happen until like November, January, because some of them are in the academy right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
You're
but
talking
you
about
guys,
you're talking about the town of Dumfries?
correct.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So Prince William County takes care of us on the weekends. And so this is why I've made a point to come here.
Understood. Now, we patrol the towns 24/7. We have a duty to do so. So I always say, people will say, Chief, what if the town police isn't here or is not available? You know, whether they are there or not there, whether they have 7 or 0, it doesn't make a lot of difference for us how we do our job. We're going to be in the town of Dumfries, Haymarket, Occoquan, Quantico. We're going to respond to those calls. We're going to come through those towns.
Of course. It's just like, you know, I'm just being appreciative and,
Yeah, I
you know,
appreciate that.
I've been promoting town of Dumfries, like flyers, the games and the frisbees and the balloons, and now you got those stickers, so now you can give them off to your guys and they can, you know, promote them stronger when they're coming to do surveillance on the weekends.
Thank you.
That's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So I'm done talking. I'm ready for questions. We're ready for questions. And let's get it going here. This is why we're really here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm very glad to meet you. I've called your office a couple of times.
Hope I took your call and talked to
You did. You were very polite. Your office was very polite, and
I'm very polite. This is my boss right here.
you actually, when I had to leave a message, you actually called back and left a message on my phone. I was very impressed. I do have an issue that I didn't hear you address,
Yes.
and it's something that Prince William County has had some problems with in the past.
Okay.
It's what is your policy right now? I've been on the website and I've read a bit. I actually slogged through that 129-page evaluation study of Prince William County's illegal immigrant enforcement policy.
Yeah.
That was a big amount to chew up.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, what is your current policy on lawful undocumented immigrants? And I was particularly glad to hear you say that your focus is on safety, because one of the things I got from reading through this is that it seems to be a small share of offenders that are illegal immigrants for most crime targets, not all, but that's one of the things I got from that. So considering the past which hasn't always bode well for us, our past history with how we've handled illegal targeting, illegal undocumented immigrants. What is the current policy right now?
What is the current policy on the police department policy on illegal immigration? That's sort of your question.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for that. And I'm going to answer that. It's going to take me a minute to do it.
That's
but,
good.
But I'm going to do it. As a police department, we have a responsibility to serve all people, regardless of who they are. And I was talking a minute ago about diversity, and I could have mentioned immigration status too. So whether you are a citizen, whether you have legal presence, or whether you're undocumented, we are going to respond to your call for need, for service, because we work for you. That's how I feel about it. We're going to come and help you as best we can, just like anybody else, regardless of your circumstances in terms of immigration. That's what we're going to do. In terms of delivering police services, you know, if you call 911, you have an issue, we're coming. And we want to build that trust with the immigrant community, which is what we do. We work on that all the time. We focus on that. So our policy is, kind of the core of your question, the board, you know, about 10 years ago, what is this, 17? Yeah. So in 07, 08, the Board of Supervisors passed a resolution requiring the police department to check the immigration status on people that were arrested and taken into physical custody. So we've been doing that since 2008. At one time, the early years, up until the end of 2012, I'm going to say the number that people have, pretty passionate about on both sides of the spectrum a little bit. We had a 287G program through the end of 2012, and then the administration discontinued all of those except for a limited number, the presidential administration, Washington. They discontinued those except for a small number in our jails. And in 2007, our adult detention center initiated a 287G program in the jail. That is in existence today. I'll get to you. That is in existence today. That's that program. So when we arrest someone, the county police arrest someone, whoever they are, they can look like me, they can look like you, they can look like whoever's in the room. If you're arrested for a crime and you're taken into physical custody, we're going to check your immigration status, which basically means we're going to ask you a very brief inquiry, and we're going to run some automated checks on you, see if there's anything outstanding that we should know about, and then you're going to go to the jail. In most cases, some people get released, up here at the magistrate. That can happen. But in most cases, many cases, you're going to go to the jail. If you go to the jail, and they do this for everyone that comes there, even brought in by other law enforcement agencies, because the state police brings folks there, the towns, the cities. It's not just a county jail. So when you get to the jail, the folks at the jail, the correctional officers, they're going to do a fairly extensive check on you at the time you reach the jail. They're going to do a further inquiry. They have about a dozen correctional officers, give or take, around a dozen, so 15, who are trained and certified by ICE to do this, and they've been doing it since '07. So when you go to the jail, you get checked. Barry Barnard is going to get checked. Everybody gets checked. And if they find or have reason to believe that you're in the country undocumented or illegal, whatever word that you want to use, they're going to notify Homeland Security, ICE, of that. ICE is often there. They have constant communication with them. They have the ability to access their data banks directly because they are trained by ICE and certified by ICE. So they do that. We don't do that. They do that. But we do, at the time of arrest, our policy for since 2008 has been to check the immigration status of everyone we arrest, taken into physical custody, and we do that today. And we've been doing it since 2008. If you want to see more information about that, there's some information in our crime report. You mentioned how many people arrested. You can see that in our crime report, and that's on our website. So that is our policy, and I talk about it wherever I go. People often ask me about that. I've been into the immigrant communities quite a bit, sharing, talking, answering questions about that, and that's how we apply it. We do not do, I want to be as clear as I can, because I would say back in January into February, I was getting a lot of calls from different stakeholders in the community that I know, and they know me, or people were contacting me, hey Chief, I'm getting some calls that y'all are doing checkpoints at this location or that location on immigration, and I would say what I'm going to tell you now, we don't do checkpoints on immigration. We don't set up roadblocks. We don't go on raids with ICE just to check, immigration status of folks. We just don't do that. So I would get those calls and I would say, no, that's impossible, that can't be us. Well, it's a blue and white car, this kind of thing. And I'm getting a couple of calls on it, and people are going through there, so you're checking the immigration status at a rolling, a roadblock. And I would say, that is impossible, and I'd hang up the phone and say, that better not be us. And it wasn't. And I would check that, of course, and follow through, and it was not us, and it was just some confusion or whatever. We don't do that, Some of you, anyone, there may be people here who work for Homeland Security. I always realize that I don't have a monopoly on information. I'm not ever the smartest guy in the room. But I know, that much about ICE because I have contact with them. I talk to them as police chief here. I think I have a responsibility to do that. I'm familiar with their leadership. So they have an office up in Fairfax that services and has serviced Prince William County for many, many years. That's nothing new about that. And they have always sent ICE people into Prince William for many years, even before we had this policy back in 08. That's just what they do. That's their mission. They're law enforcement officers. You can discuss, debate their mission and all that, and of course, America, we do that. But that's their mission. So they have two primary sections in ICE. They have the removal, the first word starts with an E. Anyway, they have removal section, then they have HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. And Homeland Security Investigations, we work closely with them. They do great work on gangs, cybercrime, human trafficking, narcotics. Those are serious topics that put all of us at risk. And they do some great work in those areas, and we work with them. Then there's the other side of the house, if you will, ICE agents whose job it is to locate people they have paperwork for and who may or may not be in the country illegally and find them and serve the paperwork on them. They take some people into custody and that sort of thing. So that's our policy. Yes, sir.
I live in the town of Belfry, and we have issues with our police department. And I live down in Williamstown, and in my court, I'm having problems with a bunch of young people congregating in my courtyard. They're smoking whatever. They act like it's an open market, and I feel unprotected in my neighborhood.
Thank you for saying that. Excuse me. Because that was one of my issues I wanted to talk about. Amen.
Yes. You feel unprotected in Williamstown?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add to
Yes,
that
ma'am.
because I'm actually from the HOA board, from Williamstown
Yes, ma'am.
HOA board. And so what we're trying to do, why we're here is we're trying to figure out what is it that we can do as a community along with the police, the law enforcement, whether it be town of Dumfries, Prince William County, Prince William Sheriff, state, whatever, to try to address this issue. As an HOA board, we are limited in the things that we can do. We do not have the authority to do certain things. So, go ahead.
And this is the day when the police come, they chase them off, and then when y'all leave, they come right back.
Okay.
I've been part of the neighborhood watch. I've taken it upon myself to bounce basketball court, my son's ADHD, bounce basketball court up and down, and I've been harassed twice. And I honestly have to say that this is why I'm here, because it seems like they're just sitting in a certain area, and I'm getting
Fort
questioned
Henry,
as well,
Fort
right?
Henry Court.
And I live in Fort Plaza Court.
That's
Yes,
behind
and we're
the
in
line.
we were in Fort Henry, so.
Yeah, so you're this, the next
Yes.
door over, and this is, exactly. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate that. I very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, I can tell you as a board, what we have done is we've already talked to the mayor of Dumfries, and what the mayor's advice to us was to try to get everybody involved, to try to work together to come up with a plan. We have a neighborhood watch, as she said, that we just do within our community. We have plenty of our residents that do not want that kind of activity into our neighborhood. We don't want it. We're willing to work with the police. If police need to come and stay at people's yards or whatever, we are all for that. We just want to know what it is that we can do and what you guys have to offer us to support us and to take care of us as a community, because we don't want it to get to the point where it's getting to that point where we have to say, I'm sorry you lost your child. I'm sorry you lost a family member, because if you want to call them a gang or whoever they're growing. As the day goes by, it starts out as one person, now it's 20 or 30 people that are just hanging out because there's no consequence.
And some gunfire.
They're firing
There's
guns.
rapes, there's prostitution.
Prostitution, there's drugs. I've been threatened.
There used to
My
be a match
family's
in
been
the backyard.
threatened openly with firearms.
And
We're
I told
done.
her, like, there's prostitution, like rape. There's a lot of rape issues over that way.
I think what we, there's a lot here to discuss tonight, but I think what we need to do is get your contact information and meet with you and
Absolutely.
sit down together and hear further about this. Let
Yes.
us, hear more detail, maybe talk to some other folks down there.
Okay.
But I think a follow-up meeting after tonight is
Officer
in
Heath
order.
is a very good officer, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sergeant.
Thank you,
Officer
sir.
Heath.
Yes, sir.
for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you for
Yes.
coming.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming.
To Chief Esposito. Absolutely.
We gotta exchange
Yes, absolutely.
information afterwards.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm working for an organization with
Yeah.
so what's this Saturday was? What happened in the case when any person driving without driver's license, the police report immediately lies or?
Question was immigration related. What if you're driving without a license and you get stopped and arrested? What happens? Do I have the question right? Kind of the same thing that I described. If you're detained and taken to the jail for that offense, you're going to have an inquiry done on your immigration status. It'd be the same policy, same outcome. If you're arrested and detained and taken to the jail, that's what's going to happen.
I work with a community Latino and it's a lot of people now afraid for going to the school with the baby, going to school with work.
Understand. I understand the dilemma. Understand.
I'm sorry, Chief, I'm sorry, right here.
Yeah.
Are you saying that if we are detained, I'm sorry, if you are detained, for criminal reasons and things of that nature, then you're gonna have to be able to explain about your deportation, immigration status, things of that nature? The police have now authority over that, is that what you're saying?
No, we don't have that. We don't have any immigration authority.
Okay,
We're going to ask you, if we arrest you and take you into
Correct.
physical custody,
okay,
at that time, and just at that time,
okay.
we're going to then do what I call a brief immigration inquiry.
Okay,
And if you go to the jail, they're going
Right.
to do a more extensive one at the jail.
absolutely, right.
That's the.
That's the thing. I was actually a couple of days ago. I was arrested for some kind of misunderstanding with the police, and I was asked about immigration status. For those of you that know me, I'm from Ethiopia, so I'm not from here. So because of that, I was able to. They didn't detain me for deportation status or things of that nature. However, I was told that I was going to be deported at some point because of my legal matter and things of that nature. So, for me, like that kind of thing is absolutely ridiculous for me because, I'm from Ethiopia and there are lots of people from different countries, Hispanics, Chinese people, just a lot of third world people and things of that nature. And I don't think it's necessary that the police obtain that kind of power. Whenever you are detained, they should not be able to ask you any of your immigration status. The police should have nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's necessary for you guys to know things of that nature. I think you should address that, Chief.
Well, before we get to the addressing part, did a police officer tell you you were going to be deported? One of our county police officers?
That's correct. Yes, I
I
was
probably want to
actually.
talk to you a little bit about that again.
Yes.
After the program, I'll plan a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
But
I will.
I understand your concern.
Yes, absolutely.
As we go about our daily business, I'm going to back up and try and be loud enough
Yeah,
so people,
sure.
I don't like to have my
Absolutely.
back to folks,
Okay, sure.
But, so as we go about our daily business, we don't stop people and ask them randomly about their immigration status. We just don't do that. We have officers in a retail store, in a restaurant, driving down the road. We don't get out of the car and ask people about their immigration status. That's unacceptable. We don't do that. But if we do arrest someone, that's our policy, and that's what we've done now for almost 10 years. Next year will be 10 years, really.
Correct. So has Trump been enforcing such things in that matter, in that regard? Is he trying to enforce things of that nature for the police to be involved in deportation statuses and things of that
Yeah,
nature?
well, let me think here for a moment. We follow our local policy. You know, and when President Trump was elected, our policy did not change. It was like that in 08, 09 during President Obama's time. And when President Trump was elected, it did not change. It's the same policy. We haven't altered it at all. And if Mrs. Clinton had been elected, in the same policy. So that's the policy we've had. And yes, you know, I read a lot. I try to pay attention to national events. I think I have that responsibility, you know, to understand what's happening across America. Because what happens across America can impact Princeton County.
Right.
So I'm aware of events, and I try to say, well, how does that impact what we do here? But the policy we have, and you can argue about it, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I respect that.
I just want
Yeah.
to give other people a chance
Yes, I
to
respect
speak up
that.
and things of that nature. But other than that, like you have a woman right there to raise your hands, you might want to be able to pay them for it.
Yeah, I respect-
Other than that, I'm pretty sure, you know, it's a very delicate matter. It really is, you know, in terms of immigration. It can definitely, you know, hit people's soft spot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, you know, something that needs to definitely be addressed, Chief, and thank you so much for your response.
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, sir.
Chief, you mentioned deployment of resources, which we understand, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you prioritize deployment in the county? And a comment, we applaud your efforts to include a diverse force, but we also trust that you're looking for qualifications first.
Yes. I'll come to you, but you got to get other people an opportunity, you know.
Sorry, I don't mean to be over aggressive, but I think Jeremy is 10 years old, so I'm wondering if I should carry my birth certificate around.
That's up to you. Doesn't matter to us.
Because I would just speak for, you know.
Yeah, that's up to you.
Full citizenship.
All right.
Chief, would you mind repeating his question?
Yes, I'm going to. Chief, thanks for talking about your staffing and how you deploy officers. Can you maybe give us a little more background, a little more detail? And then on the recruiting, appreciate you searching for diversity, but hope you look for meeting the standards first. Is that accurate, sir? Okay. So let's start at the back end and work back. So we do always uphold our standards. Yes. I hire everybody. Folks here in the front row and many others have a role in that, of course, within the police department. But I'm the one that hires people ultimately. I meet with everyone. Typically, the deputy chief and I meet with them as the kind of the final step, and we make that offer to hire, you know. And then we have some discussion with them about what our expectations are, and I'll share that with you, you know, if you'd like. But so yes, we adhere to our standards. Now, standards need to be evaluated. You know, I've been in this business a long time, and I know some things, and a lot I don't know. But I know if you set a standard many, many years ago, you've got to hit the pause button sometimes and think about, is that standard relevant today? Is it still applied today? You know, is this still the standard? We can't have standards that came up in the 70s and 80s, and yes, I was here in the 70s and 80s, and say, well, this is the standard from 1979. This is the standard from 1982. We still apply that. Communities change. We want you, and all the folks that aren't here tonight, to be proud of us. We want the folks that knock on your door to be great people who are passionate about what we do here. So we look at the standards to make sure they're correct and hitting and serve a purpose and are relevant in 2017. We've never hired a perfect person. Never. I don't remember my background. I assume they did one, but I was a teenager and I drove a car. That's probably enough. So we never hired a perfect person. They don't exist. But we want to have people that do meet our core values and who work well with people and certainly meet our standards. For example, in recent times, we've done away with a written test. We spent your tax dollars on a written examination that we purchased from an organization. You know, it's all court certified, it's all, you know, all been legal beagle and all that kind of thing. And we give that as an entry test. Not very common across America to do that. Very common. Questions, you know, to test your comprehension and things like that. So we stopped doing that because we weren't sure how relevant it really was. And we field tested it with people we did hire in the academy, and we found out the impact of that test was pretty minimal. So we don't give a written test anymore. And I'm very familiar with everyone we've hired since then. And I'll put them up against anybody, you know. So that's one change we made. I just don't think it's relevant. It's okay, but it's, you know. And another thing we did was we relaxed our tattoo policy. We had a pretty tight tattoo policy, meaning only so many tattoos kind of thing. So we've relaxed that because we're losing good people to other places who are good people, you know, good people. And they were exceeding our tattoo requirements, meaning you can only have so many. So today, for the most part, there's some little nuances, but for the most part, as long as the tattoo is not offensive, we're going to hire you. That's the policy today. We relaxed it. And so we have a long definition of what's offensive, you know, lived by a bunch of lawyers, by our lawyer friends, and we had some input into it, of course. So who decides what's offensive? Ultimately, I do. And we just, you know, use that as a measure. And so that's what two things we've done. But we've always got to continue to look at the relevant standards to be sure they're what is right for Prince William, right for law enforcement, right for the police services, meet our requirements, and make sure we're hiring the best people. But also, you know, apply the ability to understand that going forward, some candidates will be hired and then might not be here some months down the road. I always tell folks who want to listen that when we hire someone, that's the first step in the selection process. They're going to be then going to the academy. They may fail that, they may not. We don't want them to, we want everybody to succeed. Then they're going to go with a field training officer. Then they're going to be on their own on probation for a period of almost a year after that. So they have a lot to go through. When I say congratulations, you're hired, give them a letter. That's a hoorah day, of course, for anybody. They got a job. They're going to go out, they're going to call mom and dad, they're going to call the wife, they're going to call the husband. But they have a long road in front of them to demonstrate the values of this police department. When we hire them, we talk about honesty and integrity. We've done that forever. We have a long speech we go through and to discuss that with them, what that means. And we also talk to them about fair and impartial policing. And the deputy chief and I do that. And we make sure they understand what that means. You treat everybody in Prince William County that you come in touch with respect and dignity, regardless of who they are. And we kind of lean forward a little bit. We want you to hear that from us. Do you understand what the expectations are? You know, that's, you know, everybody has a bad day, everybody stubs their toe. I make mistakes. What is today, Monday? Well, I've got all week to make a couple more mistakes, you know. So everybody makes mistakes, but is a mistake of the mind or a mistake of the heart, you know, kind of thing. So it's important to us to have the standards that meet our community standards, if you will. That's important to me, it's important to us. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Because this is difficult to, you know, I mean, this is, what do I call it?
Yeah, no. I just say, you know, I don't know where to leave the question, but to be honest with you, 60-year-old black man, that question was insulting to me. I'm a native of Prince William County. My family go back to the 1700s. I remember when we had a personnel person in Prince William County, white, with a high school degree. I remember we had a clerk of the court, white, with a high school degree. So to make the assumption because you have diversity of minorities on the force to increase it is going to somehow lower the standards is the wrong assumption. So I just had to put that out there. But the other question I had, I really want to ask, we know what happened to this young man in Minnesota who had a concealed carry permit. Do you mind explaining what the responsibilities are of a person who has a concealed carry permit in Prince William County or in the Commonwealth of Virginia, particularly, if you are a person of color and you have an arm, a weapon in your vehicle?
Talking about Philando Castile?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to say one thing about that, and then I'm going to ask Major Phelps to respond to that question. I brought all these smart folks. We got to let them chat a little bit. But we have a brochure in the back, what to do if you're stopped by the police, and I've shared that, and we keep amending that to get it just right, But it's important to us that we all go home safely. The folks that work here, and of course the citizens and folks that we have contact with on traffic stops and everywhere. So I certainly understand and respect that question. So Major, can you respond to that a little bit?
I'll give it my best shot.
Okay.
So let me just repeat what your question is what are the expectations or legal responsibilities as a concealed weapon carrier?
Right. If you're at a traffic stop.
Okay.
Again,
So-
concealed situation.
So first and foremost, if you are a concealed weapon, anybody who's carrying a weapon, the first thing you need to do is, if you're encountering a law enforcement person, is to let that officer know. That is, you're required to tell the law officer that you are carrying as far as your permit. To get to that point, you've got to go through classes and everything and get issued a concealed weapon permit in order to legally carry a weapon concealed with you. In Virginia, you don't have to have a concealed weapon permit. It's legally to walk around with a gun on your hip, out in the open. All right, but in order to carry concealed, you have to go through the process to get the permit. So, you encounter a police officer, first thing you should do is let them know, I have a concealed weapon permit and I do have my weapon on me. All right, and then the officer will say, that's fine, just don't make a motion to it. We'll have a cordial conversation, go through it. They may check your name just to make sure that what you're saying is valid, because when we do run names through the indexes or the database, it'll show whether or not you are legally able to carry a concealed weapon. All right, and then 9 times out of 10, everybody that I've ever dealt with, it's okay, have a good day, and you're on your way. Now, if you obviously don't have your permit with you, then that is a Class 1 misdemeanor, potentially. If the officer does more of an investigation, what type of weapon it is, does it meet the requirements under 18.2, 308, then there's potential that you can get charged with that. But the first and foremost is safety. Just make sure, hey, have a conversation, let them know right from the start that you have a weapon on you, and then the officer will just say, okay, that's fine, just keep it right there. They may ask to take it off of you for whatever reason, just comply with that. And then we'll go through the steps. All the officer's doing is if they elect to go that route, is just to make sure the scene is safe for everybody, and then they return the weapon right as soon as they're done. All right, and it's really no harm, no foul. It's just making sure that everybody's safe in the long run, because there are people that do get antsy about having weapons on scene. People get antsy with us being on scene with weapons, and they're quite scared about it. There's officers who just get uncomfortable with it, and they just want to make sure they're safe. And that's where they're coming from, if that goes down. But 9 times out of 10, it's just keep your hands where I can see you the entire time, and we'll have a conversation, do what we need to do, and then you're on your way.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Sergeant Byron Jenkins to comment on that a little bit as well. Sergeant?
Yeah, just, it's funny you asked that question, because when that decision came out, I kind of ran through my mind to see, what, was that the right thing to do that he did or the officer responded. But the only thing I could draw from was my own experiences being pulled over as a police officer by other police officers, not only in this state, but other states, because I live in Missouri. So early on in my career, and I've been doing this about 21 years now. Early in my career, I got pulled over a lot. I'm not perfect like the chief said. We don't hire perfect people. I'm a prime example of that. But what I did that kept me safe and has allowed me to stay here and talk to you about this. This question right now is that I tell officer, trooper, hey, I'm a law enforcement officer, I have my gun on me. I don't make any moves, I keep my hand on the steering wheel, because that's the biggest thing. Officers are trained to watch the hands. That's how we train. I was academy instructor. That's exactly how we're trained, to watch the people's hands. Because the hands will kill you, not the feet or anything else, but the hands will kill you. So just to shed some light on it is that if you get pulled over, tell the officer, I have a concealed weapons carry permit on me, and he might ask you where it is. Tell him don't move your hands, leave them up there. You take cues from him, allow him to control that situation until you're able to get out of that situation. If you write you a ticket or warning or whatever. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you want to go home at the end of the day. And I think looking at the video with Philando Castile, I think that's kind of what happened, is that while the officer was trying to talk to him, tell him not to motion to it, for some reason he felt that he had to. And that officer took that as a threat, and that's from my own opinion, he took it as a threat, and that's why he fired the shot. Did that clear up anything? Help you a lot? Okay, so my thing is just keep your hands on the steering wheel invisible so the officer can know where you're going.
Thank you, Sergeant. President Bailey?
Yeah, thank you. As Chief has already said, I'm Cozy Bailey, Reverend Cozy Bailey. I'm president of NAACP in Prince William County. Actually, Prince William, because it covers also Manassas and Manassas Park. I do have a question, but a bit of commentary, if you allow me. First of all, I do have to validate what my good friend, the chair of the Human Rights Commission, just said about that question about lowering standards being a result of a definitive search for diversity. I also am insulted when that assumption is made. And Chief, you did a very good job of explaining that, and I really appreciate that. Also want to commend you, Chief, and all of your staff here for this transparency that you have here in this conversation with the Chief. When we were informed, I ensured that my constituency understood what was going on, and we took advantage to the degree that we can. You talked a bit, now going to my question, you talked a bit about standards and specifically recruiting. My specific question is, how often do you do that review that you just spoke about the current standards? The reason that question came up is because one of my constituents came to me and said, hey, look, you've been pushing that the police department here in Prince William County is making very aggressive efforts to increase the diversity of the force, and that we ought to do all that we can, and had a young man who came and said, and I applied, and he says, I was denied because I have excessive student debt. And the next day he received a top secret clearance from the Department of Defense. That's anecdotal. Obviously there are things that are behind that we may not know. But my real question is how often do you do that review for to determine that relevance and currency for your standards?
Thank you for the question. The answer, in all honesty, is not often enough. How often do you do the review of our standards? The answer is not often enough. We are right now doing an aggressive review. I've just required a review to be started, and we have a couple of strategies that we're going to deploy to make sure that they're where they need to be. So we're doing one right now that'll be very aggressive. In the bigger picture, when I noticed a trend of something occurring, I call the question. If people bring something to my attention, like the tattoos, a couple of folks in the department, not just recruiting, but elsewhere, said, Chief, there's something we might want to look at. So we did. So formally, we need to do it more frequently. We're CALEA, so they have a certain amount of reviews you have to do every year. But I think we need to do it as frequently as possible, probably on an annual basis, to be honest with you, more formally. And we just did, I just directed that we do a review last week, and so we're going to be doing that. And that means that myself and others will be reviewing these standards to be sure that they're where they need to be. So I'm always concerned about that. I'm always very concerned about that. And I think it's important that I use the word contemporary, that there are contemporary relevant standards for our Prince William community. And if I feel like it's not, we'll strike it. If I feel like there's a standard we need to add, we will do so.
And follow up, I meant to say this, commend the department also for the work that you've done over the past couple of years on pursuing a viable body-worn camera policy. You know, I can testify as a member of NAACP that you have sought community comments on the policy, that you've accepted those, incorporated those, and come up with what, from my viewpoint, as I've done a lot of research and leading the effort for reviewing that throughout the country, probably one of the best and well thought out policies across the country for utilization of body-worn cameras.
Thank you, President Bailey, for your kind remarks. I appreciate that, and that's very meaningful to us, hearing from you in that regard. And look forward to working with you and the NAACP as we move forward with this project, with this body-worn camera program. We're going to learn together. You know, I'm no expert in body. Like I said,
actually got an email from me today.
Good.
Some work on it.
Good. I have more work to do. Apparently, I have more work to do.
Just a little.
So I'm going to come back to you, sir. I'm going to stop here and come back.
Can I just provide a clarification?
Sure.
I'm a minority myself.
Yeah,
So I regret that you took my question or comment as being racist, because it's not, because I'm a minority. It's just that I was trying to get
Nobody
confirmation from the chief that what they're looking for, first and foremost, for our safety, all of us, is what they're looking for in a police officer before the diversity. Because it matters to me as it matters to you that minorities are represented in the police force.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
No, let me say, nobody said you're racist. I was just saying that, for me, I know Prince William County. There are very few people in here that know this county better than I do. I know the history of Prince William County. So my point was that oftentimes that is a question as to whether or not, as you increase your diversity, are you lowering your standards? So,
And I did
again,
not ask that, but thank you for,
yeah.
I
We're,
trust
we're fine. Thank you
Good.
very much.
It matters to me because I hate racism. I hate it with all caps.
We're good.
Okay, so please don't ever say that about me.
All right, sir.
Because I'm a
Thank you.
minority and I'm probably a smaller minority than you are.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'm going to, yes, sir. You've been patient. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We live in Princeton Woods community. We have a problem there with illegal parking, trailers, and this a whole lot of illegal parking and stuff like that. And we called the police department. They come out and put if you don't have tags on your car, they come out and put a tow tag on it, a 10-day tow tag. We had a car been there for 2 years, 5 tow tags, and how many marks on the tires? The tires look like a zebra. 2 years, and they never towed the car. And every time we call them, we got to call back. They said, when will you come and tow this car? This happens, after 10 days, somebody follow up. When we asked the police officer about why they're not coming back and towing the car, they said, well, the officer didn't put it in, or we don't have enough tow trucks to come over here. It's always excuses. Now, we got several in the community now, got tow tags in there. We got to call back and make them follow up. What problem we have, they don't follow up when they put the tow tags on. Trailers, illegal parking across the sidewalk, no tags, dead inspection. We call them, they come out. Some of them don't even put tow tags on. They just don't do anything. And we get tired of calling. He calls, I call, and we got to keep calling. And they give us an excuse every time we call. We shouldn't have to do this. When an officer put a tow tag on it, he should write it down and turn it in. And then after 10 days, he come back and check up on it. And then if it's still there, the tow truck should come there and move it. But we can't do that. Like I said, one car we had 2 years, it's there 2 years. So we have this problem right now. I even had a conflict with Maureen Cadigan and Captain Antwerp, and it's still doing the same thing. They still coming out, putting toe tags on that and not following up. Is it just our community that does this? Because we talk to other people in other communities, they come out and tow. But in Princeton Woods, we almost got an act of Congress for them to come out and tow a car.
Understood.
We pay a lot of money in our community for houses, and it look like to me the police don't want to do their job. That's their job to do it. And then they give us an excuse, reason why they put another toe tag on it. Got to wait another 10 days before you know it, the car's there 2 years. Can you tell me how we can solve this problem?
Yes. he's got a lot of cars in his neighborhood that we've had, police have come out and tagged him, and then we don't follow up and tow him later. It's kind of the issue question. First of all, I can hear your frustration, and I appreciate that.
Right.
I really do. You know, these issues mean a lot to communities. You know, we were talking earlier about, you know, murders and traffic fatalities. Of course, that's extremely serious, loss of life. But issues like towing and having abandoned cars in your street and in front of your house is very concerning to neighborhoods, and we understand that. And we need to be responsive to those questions and concerns. So I'm going to get your contact information tonight, and I'm going to meet with you.
Okay.
And we'll figure out what we need to do, and we're going to do it right.
Thank you.
But I'm, you know, hear your frustration, and we want to work with you on that to address those concerns that you have. So we'll be getting your contact information tonight.
Okay.
And if you're going to leave here in a minute, we'll get it right now. Somebody in the back is going to get it for you.
Okay.
And we'll follow up with you to talk to you in more detail about
Like I
this.
said, I went to more.
No, you did all the right things.
Did all
Yeah.
the right things.
Right.
They're still not following up.
Right,
We called to the non-emergency number.
right,
And we tell them there's a car or trailer there.
Right.
They put the tow tag on it.
Yep.
Somebody come tear it off.
yes,
Then another call again, another
Yes.
policeman put another tow tag on it.
yeah. So whatever's happened, you know, the supervisor contacted the police department, and while she attended that, it's really on us. You know, it's on the police department.
Right.
She's asking us to follow through, to work with you, and I'll have to talk with the captain and find out, you know, where we are and all that. But we're going to meet with you too, and any others that you'd like to
Okay.
bring, and see what we can do to help with that.
Okay.
And I'm going to attend that
Appreciate it.
meeting myself, and we'll try and follow up with you and try and make some positive progress on that. I'm sorry that you're unhappy, but we want to make you happy.
But no,
That's our goal.
When he start parking illegal cars and no tags and all that in the community, that's when the community is going down.
Understand?
When they know that they can't park a car there and police come up and tow it, then they're not gonna bring a car there. And
Right.
after a while, they start, well, we come to this community, they don't care.
Right.
Yeah.
And let me just say this about that type of issue. I mean, there's a lot of those kind of issues. If it's important to you, in this case, the folks from Princeton Woods,
Princeton Woods, yes.
if it's important to you, it's important to us. If it's important to you, it's important to me. You know, that's where would it rate on risk to the community? You know, but if it's important to you, then it's something that we need to be responsive to and address. And thank you for your question.
Okay.
It's kind of like the noise ordinance. Once in a while, not often, but you know, once in a while, there might be noise coming from a party or loud music or something here in Prince William County. So we, you know, by and large, I'm just using this as an example. You know, we're not going to pay a lot of attention to that until you call. You know, if you're living around that house and it doesn't bother you, and you're not responding, you know, you're not calling us, we're not going to pull over and march up there and ring the doorbell and say, I'm sorry, your music's too loud. We want to hear from you, and then we'll take action, you know, that it's concerning to you. So these are issues that are important to us, and we want to be responsive to you. I know you've all got stories, I'm sure, in your community about cars and boats and things with engines and grass that's too tall and all that kind of thing. You know, property issues. We want to be responsive to you. And whether we have a direct role in towing cars, we probably do. But if it's other issues that are suited for another county agency, we'll work in concert with them, property management. We know who to call. You know, we don't want to be telling you to call this, but we'll work with the other agency to try and address the issue and not have you do the government bureaucracy runaround, you know, making 14 calls, getting 14 voicemails. We want you to be getting good customer service and feel good about the quality of service that you've gotten. I'm going to go right here because she's had her hand up. You good? Okay, yes ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this forum. I really
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate it.
Thank
I'm a basketball coach here right in Prince William County, so I'm really concerned about a lot of issues. But my question is, what is your current, I'm originally from San Francisco, and the policy at their police department was always for all of their police departments, if there was any discriminatory practices within and outside the police department. So with the officers and within this, that was an absolute no-no. And they have, there's a case in 2015 where they let go of quite a few officers that were known to be bullying through text messages, talking about a police sergeant, an African-American female. So what is your policy in Prince William County? Or, well, let me ask the first one. Have you had some issues with discriminatory practices occurring within the police department? And if so, what is your policy on how to take care of that?
Discriminatory policies toward the community?
Toward both, so it can be within.
Yeah.
So they had to deal with that one within because they already knew it was happening out.
Right.
If fellow persons in blue were being discriminatory, of course, their fellow, police officers, then they were already aware at looking at the policing that was happening in that community as well. And again, this is in San Francisco.
So the question's about discriminatory policies. Do we have discriminatory, what do we do about them, that sort of thing. We have a fair amount of quality controls that we use. For example, we have a lot of electronic equipment in our vehicles. Thank you very much. And one of those is a computer, mobile data computer. It's like a laptop. It's hardened, so you can drop it and stomp on it and all that. It can get wet, everything. So officers, have a lot of information going back and forth, and they can talk to each other. They send emails to each other. That's not the right word, but some kind of a written message. Yeah, they send written. Hey, meet me over here. I'm going to knock on this door. Let's follow up on that case. So we check a certain number of those each month. For example, this is just one small sample. We have commanders who pull and check the messaging that goes through those computers. The officers all know that. And on that same venue, we're going to do the same thing with body cameras. We're going to pull a certain number of body camera tape. We're going to review it to be sure we're doing the right thing and see if we see anything concerning. So we have others as well. We have early intervention system where if we notice an officer's using force, a fair amount of force on a regular basis, we are going to review that to be sure that that was within our standards and that the force was necessary and properly applied according to the law and according to our policies. So we have a lot of audits and checks and balances that we go through on a regular basis. But if we have something come to us discriminatory that comes to our attention, we're going to vigorously investigate that. And sometimes we call upon others to assist us with that. So it's important to us. And if we find that we have someone that is, not adhering to our policies, we're going to address that very vigorously, including, helping that person find other opportunities. So it's important to us. And, I take that type of question and that type of issue very, very seriously. Very seriously. So that's about what I can say on that this evening. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Chief. Thank you so much for having this forum. I'm Andrea Bailey. I'm one of your leaders here in the community. And my husband and I are originally, unlike our friend over here, we're transplants and that we didn't grow up here, but we decided to make Prince William County our home. But we grew up in an area that's maybe in radius 15 to 10 minutes away from Ferguson, Missouri. And so I say that to say that environment, the results of what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, had been brewing since the early 70s, or maybe even before then, and came to fruition in our lifetime now, where it's national news. Prince William County is not like that. in that we do live in a very wholesome and good community. And I do know that that is one of your goals, to assure that that does not grow in this community. But I'm saying that platform that I'm lining for you is to say, please describe for us or tell us the diversity training that you have within your force, because diversity is not just skin color. Right. Of course, we know that. Right. It is diversity of thought and actions and skin color, and on and on and on. But I think it's important, as you're rolling out this kind of forum for our community, that we understand the type of diversity training that your officers have in terms of communication, in terms of interaction and engagement. That's important for the community to understand.
Thank you. Please describe, and snapshot the question a little bit, please describe your cultural diversity training.
Yes.
Okay. Do you do it? Please describe it. We've been doing cultural diversity training for many years, 20 years probably. We started doing it way before it was required by law. It's required by law today. Some folks aren't aware of that. We are certified by many bodies. One of the bodies we're certified is the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. You have to meet their standards. Pretty much their standards are what I might, does anybody, if you're working for the Department of Criminal Justice Services, thank you for all your hard work and commitment to public safety. But the standards that the department puts out are kind of like the basis, the basic, kind of like a base. We want you to do this much, chief. We try to exceed that in all areas. That's kind of our goal. And we long ago incorporated cultural diversity training into our recruit school and our in-service training. Today, the state mandates training in recruit school of cultural diversity. I think it's 8 hours is the mandate. I think it's 8 hours. Anybody know? I think that's right. 4 hours? 4 hours. Okay, 4 hours. And then we are mandated every other year. All police officers in Virginia are mandated to get 4 hours of in-service training. We try and do more under the direction of fair and impartial policing. I would say 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, we had one of the nation's leading experts on fair and impartial policing come and teach supervisors and command staff in the police department about fair and impartial policing. And then we sent a core of folks to training to be certified as instructors in fair and impartial policing. So we do the state mandate, and I think we do a little bit more, and we do teach fair and impartial policing, both recruit school and in-service training. And just this year, in preparation, we actually did it in preparation for the body-worn camera project. Just this year, was it this year or was it the fall? I think it was both. We all went through a fair and impartial policing refresher training to prepare us, one, just to have it done, and two, as part of our program, our training program for implementing the body-worn camera programs. So having said all that, the answer is we need to do more. We don't do enough. We definitely meet the state requirements. We exceed the state requirements. But in today's world, we need to do more. It's a challenge to do training of any topic. We have a fair amount of subjects we're required to teach by law, and then we have optional subjects we teach because we think it's important. And our academy, if you just look at the basic school, our academy is 6 months long, and it could easily be longer if we added additional hours in certain topics, or we added new topics, either one. So we're always looking at that, and we question, same thing is with standards. We're looking at the curriculum in the academy. Why do we have 20 hours of this? Why do we have, 10 hours of that? To strike that balance between making sure we're hitting the right cylinders with the right amount of training. Today, if you take a patrol officer, for example, a patrol officer like all of us has 100% of her time, right? They're hired and they're paid to be 100% of their time. Well, 20% of their time of any patrol officer is in court, training, or on leave. There's many kinds of leave. Man, injury leave, you got sick leave, you got annual leave. So they're 20% of their time when they're on the payroll, when they're on the clock, if you will, is for those three areas. Some kind of division between court, training, and leave. So 80% of the time, they're out here. So when we hire a police, and I think that's pretty good, to be honest with you. When we hire a police officer, we know, I'm talking about patrol, it's a different scenario for like detectives and things, but most of our, folks are in patrol. So when we hire that patrol officer, we know, let's just, for me, not for you, but for me, to make it simple for me, so if you have, 10 hours, 8 of those hours out of 10 hours are out here, doing patrol work, doing enforcement work, doing, whatever we do to work with the community. The other 2 hours are, doing the kinds of things I've described. So it's a lot of pressure on us, not the best word, just, a challenge. There's a challenge on us to teach all the important topics. So sometimes it becomes like this. This becomes the question. Chief, staff, trainers, what important issues are we not going to teach? Well, the first question is, does the law require it? Does the board require it? Does CALEA require it? That's an accrediting agency. Is there any mandate that we teach this? And then we just, study the question from there. But we could easily make our academy longer. There's no question about it, we could. So we do it, but we probably need to do more, to be honest. I'm trying to be as candid with you as I can. We probably need to do more.
Chief, can I add on to that?
Yes, Major wants to add on to that. I didn't get it all right.
No.
So,
I used to be the academy director before I got into this position, and last year we did a complete review of our academy curriculum training and revamped a lot of our communication as well and what we teach the recruits, and applied that to our in-service training as well. So not only is the culture of diversity important, but the communication piece and how we effectively communicate with people is just as important, whether it's dealing with people of different cultures, but it's also dealing with people in mental crisis or anything else. So all that encompasses that. And a recent addition that we just did to the Academy and working with the Human Rights Commission, I now teach a class on what the repercussions of when the police fail to do their job, how it affects the individual. So we bring in people from the community and kind of tell stories, good, bad, I don't care, but in conjunction, because I'll let you know my personal story here. My sister was falsely arrested and she was framed for a crime because a police officer did not do his job correctly. So I tell that story. It's very powerful, but we also bring members of the community in who also, hey, I had this experience, this is how it could have gone better. So we're trying to provide that information to our recruits and or through our in-service to say, hey, just think about it in a different way. We don't have to always react. Take our time, let's think through the problem and communicate, which is the first and foremost for everything.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Theo. I represent, a little smaller community in Dale City. I've gotten together with a couple of the neighbors, and I told them I was coming to this forum, which thank you for providing this forum.
Thank you for coming.
But we feel a little unsafe in our neighborhood. Between June 26th and now, a number of us have had to call a non-emergency line due to a large gathering of 25 appears to be juveniles. One of our neighbors observed, and her 5-year-old son observed a beating with a baseball bat, where someone was severely beaten with a bat. We've observed numerous fights, and it all seems to centralize around one specific house. We've gotten, I guess it's been alluded to by some of the responding officers that it's a known issue, that it's gang related, and we're trying to, like I said, our little neighborhood communicates. I know 9 out of 10 people on the cul-de-sac, and that's because maybe one of the houses has changed hands. My next door neighbor, all the streets follow, start with K. So my next door neighbor is 1204, I'm 1202, she's 1204. The house that all the activity is centralized around is the next street down, 1204. So she's gotten random people looking for that house, knocking on her door at odd hours of the night throughout the day. And she answers, oh, well, I got the wrong house. And they go around the corner to the next door down. So a lot of us are starting to feel unsafe, wondering what we can do. We're, like I said, we're already starting to communicate. We picked up the pamphlet on Neighborhood Watch, and we're going to start looking at that process. But what else can we do? And that's also, I guess, mirroring the people from Dumfries that were here earlier, their situation where they have observed violence and other criminal activity in their neighborhoods. And do you have anything like, my wife is also, we kind of split up, and I'll take this half the street, you take that half the street. We'll talk to people, see what they've seen, see what they want to ask. So.
Yes. Well, before I forget, Sergeant Brock, raise your hand, please. So he's going to get your contact information. He's the contact information person. Then he's going to send me a big long email within hours of the completion of tonight. So he'll get your contact information. We'll meet with you. We'll follow up with you. Neighborhood Watch is certainly a great way to start. We have crime prevention folks in the background, in the back of the room, who could speak to that. We have over 300 Neighborhood Watch groups in Prince William. You know, sometimes we think about programs if they're real or not. Thanks for the question. If they're real or not, well, Neighborhood Watch is real. It's real.
Well, to I guess parallel a lot of the violence between communities and police. Yeah. Zimmerman was a Neighborhood Watch, so we don't. I definitely don't want to get anyone amped up. And, and I'm not a law enforcement officer. No. I'm not going to be carrying my.
No, we don't do any of that. Yeah. We don't do any of that. Our Neighborhood Watch people are told not to carry weapons. But it's a real program, and if you don't participate, if a Neighborhood Watch doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you know, we chat with them for a while and try and to address the issue. So we'll follow up with you about your concerns in your community. If you want to share the section of Dale City you live in, or we can do that later.
Delaney, actually, right behind where the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I know where you are.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you are.
They're all K's down there.
Okay. Yeah. We'll follow up. We'll get your information and we'll meet with you. Yes, ma'am.
So first I want to thank your officers, Conway Earhart and Lieutenant Ash, on the internet safety they've pushed this year. It's been phenomenal. But there seems to be a disconnect between the schools, won't get into the mess of the school board, but between the schools and maybe asking for you guys to come and keep doing this. And I know we've exhausted them, but are you going to have more? Are you pushing to have more? And you mentioned the opioid. Are you guys doing any education in that? It's education that our kids are not getting in school. They're not getting internet safety, and anybody that has a child in school, we didn't grow up there. We can't say, hey, we did it this way. But they've done great because, I mean, Dave's with ICAC, you know, you have your SRO.
Yes.
But with I was at my nonprofit had a booth at the opioid thing at Forest Park. So is there going to be more education? I mean, your EMS see it all the time.
Right.
I mean, is there something coming? Because our schools aren't doing it.
Is Mike here? He just stepped out? Mike Pope. So, hey, Mike. Schools, resource officers. Can you talk about that in terms of, are we pretty steady about talking about cyber threats of internet safety for children?
Sir, I'm assigned to patrol.
Yeah.
I'm back on patrol.
Can you help us with that?
Yeah.
All right.
They've done great in what they've done.
Okay.
And we've got it at an elementary school level. But are we doing, you know, the schools have Red Ribbon Awareness Week, which it's crap. And it's don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Well, add that to the power of the internet. These kids are educating themselves.
Right.
You know, blue light and all these other things. But you guys see the ugly of the ugly, which is why Dave, you know, with ICAC is great when he does these presentations because he's with ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. But, you know, so they do so well, but the opioid epidemic is a whole different ballgame, and connected to the internet. These kids are educating themselves. I don't know anything about drugs. I don't know how to educate my kids. We got DARE. And you know, people have their own opinion on DARE, but can we take Red Ribbon Awareness and blow it up?
Prior to being assigned to my current assignment, I was in charge of the Criminal Investigation Division, which covers the SROs. And that's when they started the program a couple of years ago. So they do about 3 to 4 a year.
The internet?
The internet
Yeah,
training.
they've done great.
I don't know how much more they're going to do that. It takes a lot of resources when they do it at night. So they try to spread it around the county so that parents can come from all different parts of the county. So they'll continue to do that annually. When school's in session, they'll do 3 or 4 of those a year for sure. I hate to tell you, but Dave Hart got promoted, so he's not an ICAC anymore.
Oh, he's not? Oh,
yeah,
he's
but
such
we
great.
do have to represent it in ICAC. And what was the other part of your question? The opioid
The
thing?
opioid, and it's not just opioids. Obviously, yes, we are in a crisis with that. But there is absolutely no education in the schools and community. I mean, if I didn't have kids, I would want to be educated on it too. Because, I mean, what they did at Forest Park with that panel, it was a big panel. But it was to really bring the awareness here. But I don't see anyone, and not you guys, doing anything about it. Do you know what Red Ribbon Awareness is?
Never heard of it.
Exactly. It's in the morning announcements during only middle school. It's don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Guess what? Why? They go find their own why. And, you know, talk about influence. If the child doesn't have the right influence in their community, which is everybody in their community, they're going to go find their own reason and try these drugs. And I mean, let's face it, it could be one time and you're addicted. But they're not, you know, you guys see the ugly of the other. Your EMS, they're the ones that are, you know, administering Narcan and seeing these people dying all the time. We had something like you do now and like the guys do, I'm so upset that he's leaving, you know, the internet nights and things like that. But where there's a communication, you know, I drove 45 minutes for this, but the police department seems to be the only one that wants to have these presentations, but the schools don't even advertise it. Like, I don't understand the disconnect, and this opioid thing is not a joke, you know? And we've got Ohio that's doing a 3-strike you're out because they're running out of funds, you know? I mean,
I know the chief talks to Dr. Waltz on a regular basis. He's aware of the problem, and I know that we're trying to do more in terms of bringing education and training in reference to opioids. So I don't know what they have planned for inside the school specifically, but that's constantly the topic.
I mean, would the department run with Red Ribbon Awareness if we can get enough?
We have to learn more about it.
Okay.
I have to learn more about it to
I'll
answer
send
that
it to
question.
Lieutenant
you know.
Ash and give him all of it.
Yeah. But thanks for the question. This gentleman's had his hand up a while. I'm going to move back there. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chief. Good afternoon. Evening.
Evening, yeah. It is evening, isn't it?
My name is Woodbridge. I'm on a Lake Street Barbershop located in Manassas. Been with 17 years today. My question.
Today?
Yes, today.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question and comment is, school to prison pipeline. The lady just spoke on some issues, the other gentleman spoke on some juvenile issues. So what are we doing about the school to prison pipeline? Virginia's like #1 at the nation. We're putting more kids in prison. What, $100,000 per kid? That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that we're using, and we're still taking resources out of school. Like the lady just spoke on, there's a disconnect between the schools and the police department.
But parents don't go to PTOs anymore.
Right.
Parents don't get involved.
Correct. And not only that, the DARE program. The DARE program isn't like, I don't want to like just really talk bad about it. It is good, but it's got to be tweaked. There has to be more involvement. I think that the grassroots sports, anything, whether it's robotics, Prince William County is going to be good at the police department itself. If we had a county-sponsored baseball team, a county-sponsored softball team, a county-sponsored soccer team, even if you took all the sporting events and you used it to make the all-stars, you have a robotics team. But if the police department, in my opinion, the police department worked more grassroots, the kids will grow up trusting the police. The kids will grow up wanting to become officers. Your officers will go on the scene and remember this young man or young lady who was in the program. The Young Explorers is a good program, but you don't reach them until they're in high school. So if they don't already have something going for themselves, and you've already lost them. So it's only going to be a small percentage of kids who are going to be able to get to the Young Explorers program. But, you know, younger kids, you know, in the elementary school. So I just think that first, DARE is a good program, but DARE has to be, we got to expand it. Got to do more. Deputy Dog, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
got to do more. But I think that the school, the prison pipeline is Virginia's #1 of the nation.
Let me comment on that. He asked about the school to prison pipeline. So, and other things about working with young people, working with youth school programs.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we want to be sure, I'm not going to do a good job describing the school to prison pipeline. There are many others in the room here who could do a better job describing that and talking about it. But it's about, you know, having officers, and if I don't get this right, please help me out. About having officers in the schools, and we arrest children, arrest kids, and then they start this pattern of going to court, and they end up getting in trouble rather than going on and going to Nova or something. And, you know, what's the role of a school resource officer in the schools, and what should the role be? Is that generally right? Kind of right? So we are, the DCJS, the Department of Criminal Justice Services, was given a mandate to study that question. And so they have engaged Virginia Tech to do that. And he's issued, the doctor down there, I've spoken with him on the phone, and his name escapes me, but that's, you know, that's on me, not him. And he's shared with me some preliminary findings. So I'm waiting to get his complete report that they will produce, and then we'll evaluate how do we measure up, you know, with that report that's should be coming from Virginia Tech. But in the meantime, we've always had, we have school resource officers in all high schools and middle schools. That's where I should have started, maybe. And so that's like 30 officers. And they have, their role is to be there and, you know, interact with the kids, interact with the students, interact with the staff, answer questions that they can, you know, feel qualified to answer, develop mentorship, friendship, and leadership with the students, set that positive role model. Maybe some students will drift towards law enforcement by engaging with one of our police officers. But yes, they make arrests. You know, sometimes they make arrests, and we want to be careful as best we can to do the right thing in terms of when is a arrest necessary and when should it be administration or administrative handled by the schools. You know, because since we're there, anytime a police officer is in the room, there's a chance that officer's going to be asked to participate in whatever the issue is. And sometimes that can lead to an arrest. So we want to be sure that we're doing the right thing and meeting our responsibility to strike that balance between when that should be done and when we can say, you know, that's really up to you. That's really a school issue. We're here to support, you know, any way we can, but that's a school issue. So I'm aware of that issue. I'm aware of that issue, sir, and I have thought about it, and I've reviewed some of our policies, but I'm always welcoming comments on that. I'm curious to receive that report, and then we will cull over it. And there's folks in this room I'm going to share it with, who have spoken here tonight from the community, and I'm looking forward to that, to make sure we're doing the right thing. Our intent, I want to share this with you, our intent, the police department's intent is to always do the right thing. But I'm not naive enough, you know, I understand that sometimes we may not. Our intent, I'm talking about policies, you know. Our intent is to always have strong policies that the community would be supportive and be proud of us and that sort of thing. And so I'm wanting to apply that to the our school resource officer. So I'm waiting to hear back from Virginia Tech. But though I do have some preliminary information from the doctor down there, and I found it very interesting. I'm going to take a couple more questions and then wrap up. But I'll be around and offline here if you want to engage me after we're done in this setting, or you can always contact me. And if you have a pencil, I'm easy to find. I'm on the web, police department web. But you know, B. Barnard at pwcgov.org. B. Barnard, B-A-R-N-A-R-D at pwcgov.org. You're always welcome to email me, and I will be responsive to you. I'm going to take 2 more questions formally, and then I'll be around as long as we need to be around offline and chat with people when we're done with the setting. So yes, ma'am.
Hi, congratulations, by the way. I haven't seen you since you came.
Oh, good to see you.
Congratulations. Mr. Porter, I've only lived here 55 years, so you've got us beat. I'm going to talk to you today about East Longview Drive and driving from East Longview down Suicide Hill, that we call it now, because everybody pulls out of there. They don't care. They're pulling out of Adam Rumsco Plaza. They don't care. They don't care. So that's terrible. I don't understand why we don't have just a watch on that. Not somebody sitting there all the time, but I'd like to see some police presence.
Okay.
Also, when you're going from East Longview Drive all the way down to Parkway over to the mall, we can count on our hand 100 times. Expired license plates, expired inspection stickers, no inspection sticker. That seems to be the whole thing now, that they're even just taking them off the car and not even having a sticker on a Virginia car. So like I said, I've grown up here in Prince William County. Many a times we had roadblocks. Don't see those anymore. So I don't understand why we're not having those. I know the manpower, I know that, I understand that. But a friend of mine was going to Hilton High School, a teacher. She was hit by a young lady. The young lady had terrible injuries to her. She couldn't sue the insurance company of the car that hit her because the people did not have insurance. The car was not legally registered, didn't have legal tags, and the young lady did not have a license. So these are concerns. You were talking at the very beginning about the safety of the community, us getting back and forth to work, us getting back and forth to the malls, or going to our religious establishments, going to church. And I have to go by Suicide Hill to get out of my neighborhood. So those are my concerns.
My opinion is that society doesn't take care of the little things. It's a snowball. Before you know it, everybody's saying, oh, he's
Sergeant, did you pick up on that? And we can meet with you and he'll get your information. Good to see you.
It's nice to see you. Congratulations.
I'm going to take a question here. Then there was a question in the front from Jack, and then we're done. And then I'll take questions and be here until you are ready to go home. Offline, Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Chief, thank you so much. Again, my name is Malak Kasa. I'm with the National Association for Police Officers. I've spoken with Sergeant Braun on multiple issues and things of that nature. And actually, my question is actually directed to you and to also Sergeant, I'm sorry, Jenkins? Yes, sir. I know he trained at Police Academy, so we're merely an NGO organization trying to mitigate between our communities and our police officers. So we know there are a lot of, police brutality and things of that going on, African Americans, and all that. I know it's a touchy subject for some of us, but I am going to address it. So pretty much it's an issue, and the issue is that police officers are, my main question, I guess, is how well is the academy training your officers in combat and things of that nature where guns won't be necessary to be utilized? Something definitely worth thinking about. If your officers are mainly trained in combat and things of that nature, they'll be able to, use not excessive force, but whatever force that is necessary without utilizing their handgun. So that's exactly what my question is. So that's also directed to Sergeant Jenkins as well. If you could address that, I would very much appreciate
Yeah,
it. So,
yeah.
okay.
Use of force question about our training, training on use of force. I feel pretty confident. There's very few, I'd say what's number one, number two, all that kind of thing. But the training of officers on use of force is like super critical. It's like underline it as many times as you want to underline it. And we take that very seriously. We are always reviewing those policies, always reviewing our training and our tactics. Today, there's a lot of emphasis across America on communication and tactics. PERF is a national organization that studies police work, Police Executive Research Forum, and puts out a lot of information about contemporary training and use of force issues. We attend those conferences and gather what we think are contemporary issues. So the word that is often used today, is de-escalation. Well, that's a good word, and so is, escalation, or preventing escalation, if you will. So we want to apply the correct resources at any scene to minimize the use of force. So we train a lot in that. We have over 100 officers trained in crisis intervention who have specialized training to wear pins. Yes, that's exciting. And sometimes families have learned about this resource, and sometimes they'll call us, the 911 center, and ask for an officer who's crisis intervention trained because they've learned about this resource. And that's about communication. So we do everything we can to minimize the use of force, understanding that there's going to be times when our officers use force. And I'll share this with you. It's never pretty. Even when the force is minimal, if you were to see an officer apply pepper spray to someone or take someone to the ground, and let's just all assume for a moment that it was quite justified, quite within the law, quite within the policies of the police department, it was, just everything was right. It still isn't pretty. It's not, there's nothing pretty about spraying someone, using some kind of physical force on someone. But we use force. But we are always reviewing all the elements of how we go about that. We just went through some retraining where we have to demonstrate the opportunities to use force or not to use force. And that's just important to us. And if it gives anybody any comfort, and I don't know if it does not. It gives me comfort.
Actually, if you don't mind, Chief, my
Yeah.
question was actually not about the use of force.
Oh, okay.
Force is actually very necessary sometimes, and given that, our communities sometimes, there are gang members, things of that nature, so,
Yeah.
Force is very much necessary in
Yeah.
order to put people
Right.
in their right place, correct? But my question is in regards to gun usage, in regards to shootings and things of that nature. Force is absolutely necessary because that lets the community know, hey, we are in charge, because if there's nobody in charge,
Yeah.
there will be chaos. We will fall under chaos, correct? So force is necessary. Force is a necessary tool.
Yeah.
However, my question was more geared toward the use of gun violence and things of that nature.
Gun violence in the communities.
Gun violence in the community,
Okay,
including
yeah.
with our police officers as well. Some police officers, it's all over the media how police officers are using excessive force, including their guns and things of that
I see.
nature. So
Yeah.
it is mainly geared toward that, but force is absolutely necessary, I believe, from
Yeah.
where I come from. Trust me, Ethiopian government is a lot more harsh than our government. Our
Sure.
government, you guys are a lot
Sure.
better than, you know what I mean? You guys
Yeah.
are doing a tremendous amount of job in terms of not using excessive force.
Okay.
But, my question's around guns and police officers. So
The police
the use
officers
of-
using guns?
Yes, police officer using guns on community members and things of that nature. That is exactly what our organization stands for, and that is what I would like addressed at the moment, just so we can get our,
Yeah.
get this clear. However, that is what our organization stands for. It's for a National Association for Police Officers.
Right.
So it is geared toward you guys. However, the community needs to understand
Yeah.
that police officers
I got it.
are also not
I think we got it.
let you
So
down.
I'm going to answer a little bit, and then I'm going to ask the deputy chief to talk about that, and Sergeant Jenkins can talk about that a little bit in terms of the use of weapons by police officers, deadly force by police officers. Because she asked Sergeant if you would comment a little bit. We're trained in all that. We abide, as any right police department in America does, should do, is we abide by proper constitutional laws, statutes, policies, federal court cases. We abide by all of that, and we could walk through them, but we follow that. That's our standard. Glad to share that policy with you. And we train in that, and that is our policy, how to use deadly force. That's or really the title we use is defensive life force, how to apply that properly. So I'll let these folks here have a chance to comment on that. I'm sorry we're not getting your question right. But what I wanted to share with you, then I'll turn it over to these two guys, and then we're done. And Jack, I'll talk to you offline. And is I review, good, bad, or otherwise, I review every use of force in this police department. And it's been suggested once or twice, that others could do it, that kind of thing. And everyone's very capable. There's no question they could do it. But I just feel like I have a responsibility. So I review every use of force that's, that use here in the department. And, we of course document all that, and I review that to be sure it was applied, as do others. A lot of the folks in this room review that, and then I review it. So it's important that, we have a lot of eyes to be sure we're doing the right thing. If we have an incident like that, absolutely. I'll let the deputy chief, would you like to? I'm going to let the deputy chief and the sergeants respond a little bit, if that's okay.
Well, the sergeant can talk more about the actual training that's done, but we, in the academy, all our officers are taught and tested on a use of force continuum. So they're given certain scenarios where force is supposed to be used because the person in the role play is not cooperating to a certain level, and we make sure that their reaction matches it. I will tell you that in Prince William County, I've been here for 20 plus years, and we've had very few officers discharge their firearms at individuals in the line of duty. We've had uses of forces, yes, but very few of them involve the firearm. And when they go through the training, if their response doesn't match what we're looking for, they have to go through the test again and again, and if it doesn't match, they don't graduate, they don't become police officers. So he can give you the specifics on the training, but I'll tell you, we have very few line of duty shootings. Sergeant Jenkins? Yeah, he can talk to the specific training, but what I'm telling you is that we have a use of force training, and that's what it involves, making sure that the force that's used in the scenario matches what's expected and matches what's appropriate and legal.
A question, just a comment. I moved to Prince William County in '76 from Fairfax. My bicentennial purchase was a townhouse in the community. And I got active in the community, and I'm in the Committee of 100 with Cozy and Andrea Bailey, Carol Nogle's there, and other people are members of that. I'm president of my civic association in Lakeridge, Occoquan Coles area. But I just want to say that ever since we moved to the county, we noticed the friendly nature of the police department with the community and with individuals. And I know that Chief Dean worked very hard. I mean, all of you, the three chiefs that have been in the department, and you especially, I know, have been very participatory. We've had programs on the opioid epidemic, active shooter, community policing, mental health issues. And the police department has always been there, supportive of us, working in the community as partners. And it's a very positive thing. I have to say, it's an amazing place to live in Prince William County. I mean, I've only been here 4+ decades, but I feel that, you know, the day I moved in, I enjoyed the presence of an active, friendly police department that worked with the community. I was a neighborhood watch in my townhouse community, and all those different interactions and interfaces have all been positive. I just want to thank the police department for everything. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming. If you want to chat offline, I'll be here till we're done. So thanks a lot. We have more chats with the chiefs coming. We'll put that out on social media, and look forward to seeing you and others in the future. I really appreciate you coming tonight. Thanks. Drive safely.
Wonderful, President Bailey.
Oh, yeah. Across the street, way back in the back.